So I'd like to speak about the mystery experience. I just want to say first how lovely it is to look up to you. It feels like the right relationship. Normally you're looking down. And how nice it is to meet so many fellow explorers of this mystery here, together. Because I'm guessing that no one could possibly be here unless at some point in their life they had also come face to face with the breathtaking mystery of existence, which is here right now. So I want to share an obsession of mine with a very simple question. What's this? What is it? What is this thing we're experiencing right now? This flow of colors and shapes and sounds and feelings and thoughts. What the hell is it? Because when I see us, all of us, I see us walking around as if we know what it is. And we don't. And having been exploring this now for a very, very long time, some decades, I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody knows what this is. But here it is, nonetheless. And when we're stuck in our story, I don't know if it's like this for you, but I'm guessing it's the same. It's like you're doing this. It's like you're caught in with something. You can see this much. You know, I have my story. I came down on the train yesterday. My mum's not well, all of that. Came back on the train. And part of what was going on was the story. And if I get stuck into it, then it's like, yeah, I'm Tim, I've got to be there for this thing, and I'm going to miss this and meet up. And all that's actually fine, I think. But it's such a shame when I don't notice this. Because it's always here, this mystery of existence, that I am, that this is. And what I notice is that when I look like this, it all kind of goes very black and white. And when I become aware of the mystery, wow, suddenly I'm aware of listening and looking and feeling and meeting you, and how incredible that is. So here we are in this mystery together, on this strange journey. What interests me is what happens to consciousness when you become conscious of the mystery. And that little film was my attempt to try and convey my experience and the experience of others that I know when we become conscious of the mystery. First happened to me when I was quite young, about 12 years old. When I was a kid, it always seemed curious to me that all the grown-ups seemed to be pretending that they knew what was going on, as if they were in some sort of coma together. And with the innocent eyes of a little boy, it just felt like, why is no one talking about this? Why is no one going, why when I switch on the television do I get every damn thing, but I never get anyone going, life, what the fuck? And one day, I come from the southwest of England, and I was sitting on a hill over my little sleepy hometown that I grew up in, and something happened for the first time. Something happened. I had no idea what had happened, but something happened. And I think of it now as the first time that I experienced what I call now being deep awake. I went so into that mystery of, whoa, what is this? What is it for? What am I? Well, everything. That a shift happened. And suddenly, it was like stepping into a secret garden, which was just right next door, and I'd not noticed it. This profound sense of wonder, this breathtaking oneness, and most of all, this love. this incredible love. And as I put right at the end of the film, the thing that hit me when I was 12 was, I'm home. It's like coming home. It's like the biggest surprise I've ever had, and yet it feels totally familiar. Like I've always known this. And it was right there. And it was a moment of great relief, and I can remember it now vividly. And I came down from that hill, and I carried on being a mad teenager and doing every crazy thing. But what was different was that it felt like this is it. What I'm looking for with all of these questions isn't just a clever set of words. What I'm looking for is a state of consciousness in which I know something I can't actually say because it's before words. It's a deep knowing, a gnosis, they used to call it in the West. And it's a state where it's so real that everything else feels comparatively unreal. So I set out on a journey which has been my life of trying to work out what the hell had happened, seeing how I could experience it again and go deeper. And because it's my quirky nature to do so, to share it, because I like to communicate. That's what a Tim Freke seems to do. And during that process, I had the opportunity to study and write books on just about all of the spiritual traditions of the world, a large number of books, in which what I was really doing was going into them for myself and going, look, these guys have had the same thing. China, these guys have had the same thing. India, these guys, shamans, these guys have had the same thing. And they've spoken about it in completely different words, in a different time, in a different culture. They've got their own kind of shtick going on, some of which I like, some of which I don't. But it seems like it's coming from people who've gone, whoa, all right, I see. How can I put that in words? Jeez. Because I think it's because it's a human experience. People often used to say to me, it's not so fashionable now, but it was, people would go, well, Tim, yes, but what tradition are you in? And it felt like to me, well, all of these people are human beings. I'm in that tradition. This is all my tradition. It's human beings exploring the mystery. It's all my tradition. It's all my past. And I can learn from all of it. And yet the authority doesn't lie in it. The authority must always be my own experience, because that's what I actually have. That's what you actually have, your own experience. And that's why what I would like to do with a little bit of time we've got together is to share the way that I have come to try and put the inexpressible into words. And for you, while I describe it, to have a look for yourself to see whether it works for you. And if it does, I really would be wonderful. And if it doesn't, well, it doesn't, and then move on. Because now, when I look at this moment, and I try to describe what this awakening is, and these words are very dangerous. When I try and describe what I see now in this moment, the best analogy that I can come up for is that the deep awake state is very similar to lucid dreaming, except it's now. I call it lucid living. I've got to take my jacket off now. We're friends now. What interests me about dreaming is that when you dream, you can see that your nature is not what you think it is. But there's a profound paradox to what you are. And what this moment seems to me is also a profound paradox. See, I'm a bit of a non-dual heretic, because I don't think it is enough to say this is all one. because I think it's more paradoxical and much more interesting than that. I think this moment is paradoxical. That's its nature. And you can see your own paradoxical nature in a dream. And when you dream lucidly, consciously, you can actually experience it. Now, it doesn't matter if you've never dreamed lucidly. I'm going to give it as an analogy and then return to this moment and see what you see. So when you dream, you appear to be a person in a dream world. You see from the person in the dream world. You're surrounded by other people in the dream world. You're on an adventure. Maybe full of meaning, maybe just boring, maybe erotic. Could be anything. Seems very real. Sometimes it's so real it's terrifying. And when you're just unconsciously dreaming, as it were, you're in the dream, you have no idea about all of this. You think that's who you are, and that's the end of the story. But if you become more conscious, you see that's not all you are. Actually, what you are is it's even more interesting. Because there's another side to your nature. Because what you are on another level is the dreamer. You're the awareness within which the whole dream is arising. And you are a character in the dream. Both at the same time. Which is true? Well, they're both true. Stand in the dream, you're that character in the dream. Stand outside the dream, and you're the whole thing. You're the dreamer. What form do you have? You don't have any form. Because you're all the forms. You are the dream. There's no separateness between you and the whole thing. It's all you. Step in, it's not all you. You're this, there's lots of other people and things and 6-foot yellow rabbits and all sorts of mad things. Come out, it's all you. It's all one thing. Which is it? It's both of those. That's a state we go into every night. Now, what I see in my experience, and it's an analogy that's just been used by people who have been exploring this for centuries, all around the world, is that this moment is also like a dream. It's not a dream. Dreams are dreams. This is waking. But it's like a dream. And like in a dream, when we live unconsciously, we see this much. When we become more conscious, when we become deep awake, we see the other pole to our identity, to the paradox of who we are. And the other pole of our identity is the opposite of this pole. So here's a way into that straight away. I'm experiencing myself right now as both an object and a subject. And I'm guessing you are too. I'm both of those at once. Here's the object. Here's the body. Here's the thing you can see and touch. It's very cool. Everyone should have one, I think. It's a good thing to have. That's the object. That's what you get to see. What I know myself to be, though, is not this. What I know myself to be is the subject. What I know myself to be is that which is experiencing this. What I know myself to be is something which is experiencing this flow of colors and shapes and sounds, which includes the body, which is also another thing in that flow of experience. Just like a dream. So what is the subject? What is it? What is that thing we call I? I'm going to throw two quotes at you because I just love them. So I hope they'll work for you. And they come from completely different places in time and geography. One is from the Gospel of Thomas, which is a Gnostic gospel. Beautiful gospel if you don't know it. And in this gospel, this figure of Jesus is revealing this gnosis. Oh my God. And he says to his students, he says, I will reveal to you what cannot be seen, what cannot be heard, what cannot be touched, and what cannot be imagined by the mind. Which on the face of it, you've got to say, does not sound that useful. Although he does say elsewhere in the gospel, if you understand my words, you will not taste death. See, now I'm interested. That's good marketing. Okay, go on. Okay, second quote. The Upanishads, 500-700 years earlier, India. Here it's a little different. Here it says, what is it that cannot be seen, but which makes seeing possible? What is it that cannot be heard that makes listening possible? What is it that cannot be touched which makes touch possible? What is it that cannot be imagined which makes thinking possible? And I think what both of these writers are pointing to is our subjective nature as awareness, or to use the traditional name, spirit, which just means being. Spirit means essence, essence from S-A to B. It's being. Your essential subjective being, the knowledge that you have right now that you are, which is, but you can't see it. It's looking, but you can't see it. It's listening, but you can't hear it, because it has no form. Why? Because it's not in this. Just like in a dream, awareness is not in this. This is in awareness. When you dream at night, you could look everywhere for the dreamer, and you'd never find the dreamer, because the dreamer is everywhere and nowhere. It has no form. It is all the forms, but it has no form. What I want to suggest is that if you look carefully right now, this is true for you and me right now. That's the paradox of our nature. Here, I'm a form, I'm an object, I'm a thing, I'm a body. Here, I'm a nothing, I'm a space, I'm an emptiness, I'm a presence, just like in a dream. Here, I'm an object, here, I'm a subject. Which am I? I'm both. I'm both of those. Here, I'm separate from you, which is wonderful, I think. Just fantastic. I can't understand why people keep putting separateness down. It's so fantastic. I can meet you and you're different to me. Wonderful. All these colors and shapes and feelings and sounds, and it's fantastic. Why would you ever not want that? It's like wanting only white light with no colors. Don't get it. Here it is. Brilliant. We've got that. And that's lovely. But, as well, come back to this place. Be conscious of the presence of your being, and instead of putting it somewhere, put it everywhere or nowhere, like in a dream. And as that becomes obvious to you, you'll find the place where there's one of us, where there is no separateness. Because I'm not saying this is Tim's dream. Tim's in the dream. This is not your dream. You're in the dream. This is the dream of the deep self, whatever name you give that. The big mind, Brahman, Atman, who cares? Being. And just like in a dream, within this, it's all separate. In here, it's all different. But here, it's all one. Can you begin to see this paradox? Separate, not separate. Object, Subject. Thing, no thing. Our problem is we don't notice this. Our problem is we see this. And the problem when we just see this, as everyone has talked about, is that life becomes a bit like and very grey. And what it feels we're doing together is exploring how we can also be conscious of this. And when we do, there's this oneness and this love. Because love, it seems to me, is how oneness feels. What arises in Tim when I'm conscious of this profound oneness that connects us all is love. Love is how it feels to be separate and not separate. If you think about anyone you love, I mean, I have a 13-year-old daughter. I love her to bits. We're separate and we're not separate. Her joys are my joys. Her suffering is my suffering. I love her. What happens when you find out you're one with everyone? Even your enemies. Everyone. Then there's this profound, what I call big love. This unconditional love of being. And this is not an abstract thing. This is not like, yes. This is like, yes. You know, again, I don't get it. I do get it and I don't. I get it. Look, this is ordinary. It is ordinary. It's here already. It is here already. It's kind of nothing. It is kind of nothing. And it's fucking amazing. Now, maybe it's just my quirky nature, but I kind of get drawn to the fucking amazing. Because when I go into this, it's not, it's wow. You know, it's when I don't see it. It's like when I see you. I see your face and it's like, yeah, there's another person. Hello, we're meeting. I can do that. Or I can see you, I can look in your eyes and go, holy shit, I am connecting with conscious being. I'm connecting right now with something I cannot see through something I can see. Something which has no form is connecting through form with something which has no form. Far out. That is far out. Or when we talk, because hearing's doing it too. I love that because I talk a lot, as you can probably tell. And I always get this sense when I'm doing this. It's like, right, have a look. It's like here, there is this presence of awareness which has no form, which is speaking but can't be heard. And in it, right now, ideas are popping up. I have no idea what an idea is. I don't know where they come from, but they're going poof. And I'm told it's something to do with the porridge in my head. And that's told to me by very clever people, and I'm willing to believe them. Well, it's certainly got something to do with the porridge in my head. And it's going, so right now there's ideas and then porridge in my head. And those ideas are getting formed into words, into concepts, whatever they are. And then those concepts are then getting pushed down, and then I'm moving my heart and like this. And now those ideas are now in my jaw and my mouth, and now they're in the air. They're going through the air. They're in the air. They're in the air. Just vibrations in the air, and then they're reaching your ears, and now they're in your ears, and it's a vibration in your ear, and then your porridge is going, and then ideas are popping up in formless awareness. If they're there right now, something which cannot be heard is connecting with itself through this incredible dance of forms. Or we could say we're just having a chat. So what I feel is that when we enter this, when we really pay it attention, there is this wonder and this love. And this love is not like pious. It's a love which comes right down into the body. It's a love which comes into every cell in your body. It's everything. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of feeling. It's the big space. It's the whole spectrum being held together as one. That's what that love is. And it's right there. this is the real thing I want to tell you, is that it's right there for all of us. Because, there is absolutely nothing special about me at all. I know that, and if you hang out with me long enough, you'll know that too. There are people here who've hung out with me for a while. Ask them, they know. But what I have found is that something is moving for us collectively. And what has astonished me is that I have found that if we get together, I run these mystery experience retreats. I'm doing one in London soon, doing one in Glastonbury at New Year, Tokyo next month if you want to come. And I have found that if we come together and focus on this, we can find this, you can find this, everyone can find this for themselves. Not in a way which you go, people come often at the beginning, they go, well, I know when I've got it. And it's like, you'll know, trust me. You'll know. You'll know. So my message, really, the reason I wanted to accept this kind invitation from Boris was, look, this is here for us. Why? Because we're alive. Because this is who we are. And it's closer than we possibly imagine. We just need to have the opportunity to see it. As well, however, things can get in the way. So what I want to do now is suggest some things which get in the way. I'm sticking my neck out here, but I'm going to do it anyway. The biggest thing which gets in the way to seeing you're this is either or thinking. The approach, I'm not going to talk about it at length, which I've developed, I call it paradoxical thinking. It's based on the idea that life is a paradox, and because of that, we need to think on the deepest level in terms of both and, not either or. Like in a dream. Are you that person in the dream, or are you the dreamer? You're both. Right now, am I Tim, this vulnerable human being from Yeovil, son of hairdressers, who's had this strange mad life and has ended up here standing in front of you, talking in a microphone? Am I that, or am I really God? I'm both. I'm both. I'm both at once. I am this, appearing as this, meeting this, appearing as you. We can meet here, it's okay, or we can meet here as well. Here's what I don't think is helpful. Trying to get rid of this. A huge amount of non-duality, because I've studied history, because that's an interest of mine, I can see the way that non-dual philosophy has changed over the centuries. And there's been many forms, of which this modern form, which has taken off particularly in the UK and elsewhere, is really a small fraction. It's not the only way of approaching this. And this modern form sometimes feels like it really gets in the way. And it gets in the way because it's going, this, not that. You want this? Get rid of that. That won't want you to get rid of it, but you've got to get rid of it anyway. It's a separate self, it's an ego, there's something wrong, there's something bad about this, and it's that. Get rid of Tim. I tried a long time to get rid of Tim, the fucker wouldn't go. Here's my suggestion to you. There's nothing to get rid of. There is nothing to get rid of. Far from it. The whole movement into experiencing the oneness is to celebrate the separateness, to fall in love with the separateness. When we allow our humanity, this becomes obvious. When we try and push it away, we end up in a very cold, dry place. It really reminds me, there's another philosophy which is very fashionable outside of this sort of environment, which is materialist, reductionist science. I love science. I write about science. It's amazing stuff. But there's a huge misperception, which is current, that science is saying, really, you may think you're this, But really, it's just molecules. It's just atoms. It's just physical things doing their stuff. Consciousness is an epiphenomena, which happens to be some strange byproduct for some reason we don't understand. It's of no significance. This is not the view held by the great scientists at all. Quite different. The great Albert Einstein ridiculed it beautifully when he said, I've fallen in love, and someone says to me, it's just chemicals in your body. That really will not do. No. It is chemicals in your body, but it's not just chemicals in your body. It is molecules, but it's not just molecules. Reductionism takes the majesty of life and reduces it to something small and says, we've explained it. This is really just this. Get used to it. And you see that happening in science, which is why most spirituality for them is like, idiots. It's just this. You end up somewhere very cold. You end up somewhere very narrow. There's no meaning to life. Of course not. It's just this. It reduces something magnificent. Well, with science, it reduces it to billions and billions and billions of tiny, 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 tiny little things. That's what really is. Or energy below that, or whatever. What I want to share with you is not that really. What I want to share is, by comparison, I think there's something similar has happened to non-duality, which is another form. That's kind of objectivist reductionism, where we've looked at the objects and reduced and reduced and reduced. And the same can happen subjectively when we look within. You find this, it's a huge revelation, and it is. And suddenly you hear, it's just an illusion. There is no separate self. There is no this and that. It means nothing. It's all one thing. Now we've gone from billions of things, for the scientists, to it's just one big blob of no significance. And the thing which we started with, this tender human experience which we're having, has just been erased, not explained, which is what we wanted to do. It's been erased. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there. That's the problem. So we have to struggle with that to get rid of it. Because if we did, we would what? We'd know. And there's a macho-ness that comes with it, which I really don't get. You see it in science too. It's like, well, you're not up to seeing the awful truth. It's just a meaningless void, an accidental universe that's come into being for no reason, and you're just clever monkeys clinging to a tiny rock in the middle of nowhere. Okay, maybe. That's one interpretation of this. Let's not jump to that conclusion too quickly. And then on the other hand, this kind of non-dual thing where it's like, we've arrived, you've got it, once you know you don't exist, you're there, you're finished, there's nothing more to do. And the problem becomes, and you see this with a lot of spirituality, is that along with that becomes a demonization of the mind. Your mind will do this, your mind will do that. You've got this thing inside you now trying to get you. Oh God. It doesn't want to die. No, I don't want to die. Yes, you should die. I don't want to die. Oh God, there's two minds now. Hang on, I thought we were trying to get to non-duality. I've got two of you. Look, 13.5 billion years of evolution to get you to think. Is it all a mistake? Was that like just some cosmic fuck up? Oh, surely not. The mind is beautiful. The mind is exquisite. But the mind is just like everything else. It's paradoxical. It's ambiguous. Think in one way and it'll be shit. Think in another way, it'll be woo. The mind is really just talking to yourself. Talking. Is talking bad? Surely talking's good and bad. You know, you don't want to be sitting next to someone on the bus who just talks and talks and talks about nothing the whole time. You don't want to have that person in your head. You don't want to do that to yourself. but having a conversation, hopefully like you're having here, that's really great. There's nothing wrong with the mind. There's nothing wrong with anything. What we want is to see the opposite as well. You don't want to be stuck in your mind. That's hell. But if you can be in your mind and aware of the great silence within which is rising, hurrah. And to find the silence, you don't have to kill the mind. To find the place where we're all one, you don't have to get rid of your separateness. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think you need to become more separate. See, you have come to this today because you have gone through a process of individuating. There's not many people here. Most people aren't interested in this. But something's happened in you whereby you have questioned that. Your mind has questioned that. You have learnt to think for yourself. You have gone off on what Robert Frost called the road less traveled. You are more individual because of that. The herd is heading that way. There was a poster in the 70s I had on my bedroom wall, which was lovely, which is a whole load of lemmings running off the cliff. And there's one lemming heading in the opposite direction going, excuse me, sorry, can I just, sorry. You're that lemming. You've individuated. Because you've become more separate, you have become more conscious. Because consciousness is separateness. When there's no separateness, there's no consciousness. That's what's going to happen to you tonight when you go to sleep. When you go into deep sleep, your sense of being a subject and an object, all the paradoxes we've been exploring will all disappear, and there will just be moo, except you won't know it. Everything will be one in deep sleep. And it feels good. You can remember it afterwards because you're not conscious at the time, but afterwards when you wake up and that's that lovely kind of, God, that was good. Just a little bit more. It's bliss. It's lovely. But you're not conscious at the time. Why? There's no separateness. In the morning, boop, separateness. And you're conscious. Because consciousness is subject and object. Consciousness is the one taking a perspective on itself. When the one wants to experience itself, it needs a perspective, and therefore it's separate. I'm separate. Here we go. I'm a perspective. You're a perspective. Each one of us is a unique place in space and time, experiencing space and time. And we're separate. People say to me often, Tim, I want to be one with everything. I say, great, go to sleep. They go, that's not what I mean. I know that's not what you mean. What you mean is I want to be consciously one with everything. Well, here's the rub. Here's the paradox. To be conscious is to be separate. So what we want is not an either or, it's a both and. Of course it's both and. That's what non-duality really is, both and. That's what the Tao is. It's what connects yin and yang. So what we're looking for is to be conscious, and now we're conscious to be conscious of oneness. Now what's happening? Now we're both. Now we're both separate and not separate at the same time. That's the way it is. Aha, cool. And that's the journey I think we're on. We've come in, and you see a little baby, you look into their eyes, it's like looking into the eyes of the Buddha, isn't it? It's like, whoa, there's all that vast oceanic presence. But they don't know that. They have got to make the journey you made into becoming human, into becoming a separate individual, into learning to think, into conceptualizing, to separate the whole world out. Up, down, in, out, computer, floor, shoes, socks, face. He's got no head. So we break the whole world up, we come in, and each of us has done that. As we break it up, it gets bigger, doesn't it? You know, there was a time when my little girl, her world was our house, strange car journey, grandma's. Now she's been to America, she's been here, it's getting bigger and bigger. And we're doing that all the time. You want to understand how this works? You'll need someone to give you concepts. Bang, 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 bang. And you'll become more conscious. Because consciousness is discrimination. Every time we discriminate something, we become conscious of it. When we don't discriminate it, we're not conscious of it. Concepts, really good things. But, like everything, it's a paradox. It's ambiguous. There's another side. So we come in, and then you can see it. You know, my son's 18. You can see it happening now. I remember it myself. Now it's like you get stuck in the separateness. Now that magic of just playing in the moment is all gone. You're beginning to come into time. That's a good thing. Of course it's a good thing. If I didn't think it was a good thing, I'd be sitting to him, I wouldn't bring him in. But we get lost in it. You come into the world, you find yourself as an individual, you come right into this, and now you become lost in it. And as you become lost in it, it hurts. But that's not the end of the journey. As Richard said earlier, it's not the end of the journey. That's just the beginning of the really interesting bit of the journey. The journey goes right to the end. The really interesting bit, I suspect, is your last breath. Or maybe the bit just after. You come in, and at that point, that's where this process of spirituality, essence, awakening, that's where it happens. That's the place where you suddenly go, okay, well, what is the subject? And at that point, you're making a journey back to the place you started that was there all along, and you're knowing the place for the first time. You can now be conscious of being that vast oceanic presence. But you're conscious of it through this. Through this. And this hasn't gone anywhere. And it hasn't become... I used to think when I started this journey in my 20s that if I did it enough and I looked at enough white walls and maybe even if I had to give up sex, I would finally become enlightened. And I'd be kind of Uber Tim. I mean, boo. And you'd meet me and you go, I met Uber Tim. I go, yes. Just to be around Uber Tim is just... None of that has happened, as I'm sure you can see. What has happened is so much more interesting than that. Firstly, I've given up believing in Uber beings because I met a whole load of them and they turned out to be like you and me. Which led to one of my favorite lines, which I'll just throw in passing, just because it's worth having. Which, because of this polarity, we are all great souls and we are all assholes. All of us. Including people with a nander at the end of their names, all of them. Everybody, we're all like it. Why? Because this is the paradox of our nature. So what I'm suggesting to you is just this. There is a profound paradox happening in this moment. To find the other pole, we do not have to deny our humanity, and neither should we. And do we really want to? Is it really cool to go human? Is it? This is a beautiful thing. My dream is that we can meet authentically in love with one another. And that means that I can meet you as Tim here and as this. And I can meet you in your humanity and as this. And I can see through the form to this endless potential, this huge presence, which you are. And when I do that, I see the beauty of the individuality. Suddenly, you look like something else to me. Suddenly, you are sparkling and gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Just as you are. And I have no illusions that there won't be a difficult side to you, as I know there's a difficult side to me, because that's what it is to be human. It's to be vulnerable. It's to be this and that. If you've certainly by the age of, I'm 50 something, and if you've not got some wounds and some neuroses by now, you've been taking it too easy. Because life is pretty tough. So my hope is that this explosion of consciousness of which you're it, can keep moving. There are traditions in which you see this clearly. The Gnostic tradition, of which I've written of, is very clear. The journey you go on is you're first identified with your body, then you discover your soul, your psyche, the inner world, and that's all the personal growth stuff, and that's exploded. I mean, that's in the Daily Mail, that's everywhere. And then something else happens, which they call the pneumatic or the spiritual. And that's the discovery of your deep self, where it's all one. And what happens is it's a bit like, with kids. You watch it, because kids grow so quickly, you can see them. It's like Teletubbies are really cool, and then one week they're really not. And now it's Harry Potter. We're all a bit like that. I was like that. And so when you discover this incredible impersonal oneness, all of that looks like a load of tosh. Suddenly it's like, this. They just haven't got it. And it's very easy then to get stuck in that. But that's not the end of the journey. In the ancient initiatory process, that was the next step towards what they called the gnosis, which was represented by the idea of the mystical marriage. The marriage of all of the opposites, so that they are both two and one at the same time. In the Zen tradition, you get this lovely thing of the story of the 10 bulls, where they have these circles, Zen circles, with little pictures in. And it's about the first is the guy's all lost, and then it's the bull, which is the self, the separate self, and he has to tame it. And he gets on it, and he rides it, and he tames it, and gets, manages, which is what we're doing. And then he hits number 8, and it all just disappears. It's empty. He's found the emptiness, nirvana. There is no separateness. There is no self. And that's right. But it doesn't end there. Then he comes back into the world, 9 and 10, in which he is both up the mountain in the emptiness and walking through the marketplace where he started with a bottle of wine in one hand and his staff in the other, living. So what I want to suggest is that there's a way of seeing this non-duality which allows us to really embody and appreciate our vulnerable humanity and to bring it to life. And that rather than heading off here and dismissing all of this as a meaningless story, an illusion, all the rest of it, to actually go, the more I find that this primal knowing and this safety, the more I can engage and really live. The more I can bring this love into life. The more I can share this, the more we can meet as separate and not separate with each other. And I want to end on a very personal note. Yesterday, I was in hospital with my mother. She's 87. I love her more than I can tell you. She's one of those women she would never read a book. She reads my books, but that's because they're by me. She's not interested in spirituality, awakening. She just knows this. I don't know how she knows. She just knows. She's just full of love and full of giving. There's a lot of people like that in the world. And she's dying, or she might be dying. She's got cancer and she's suffering and it's hard. And I spent 8 hours in the hospital with her and it was full on. I cannot sit there by my mum and say, yeah, it's all an illusion. It's just karma, Mum. Hey, if only you meditated like I told you. I can't do that. And you know what? I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit there going, yeah, but I have transcended suffering. I'm above all this. I don't want to do that. I want to be there in the moment with my mum, with my heart breaking, because she's my mum. But I don't want to be just lost in that. Because if I just have that, I will collapse. But that's not the only reality. The reality is this incredible paradox where there is a place which is always there, which is always free, which knows that there is something good about this, despite appearances, and which can bring love to any situation, even the most terrible. And when I have both, there's a magic, a poignancy, a bittersweet beauty which arises. And that's what I want. That's the both and. To celebrate the beauty and to bring love to the suffering. To meet as all one in our beautiful individuality. thank you for your kind attention. It's been beautiful to be with you.